We are tonight's entertainment.
You can't handle the truth.
The fire rises.
Pizza time.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So it begins.
You know how much I sacrificed?
You think that's air you're breathing?
Groovy.
I don't have friends. I got family.
We are Sex People! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Craft Services.
Hey, Trent.
Hi, Parth.
You're looking well.
Likewise. What have you been eating?
Thanks for asking. I mean, you seem like you're in a rush. I hope you don't mind if I just, delay my answer, take as long as I need. You're not in a rush or anything, are you?
No, after we small talked for the past 20 minutes, I'm realizing that I should definitely leave to go to the airport to go visit my sister in Michigan in the next 20 minutes. But yeah, feel free to tell me about the last couple meals you've had. We got nothing but time.
So this morning I woke up a little early. I made myself some chai and drank that. I haven't physically eaten anything yet. Last night, though, I had a pack of Doritos with my brother. Well, I mean, we each had our own separate pack of Doritos.
Nacho cheese, Cool Ranch.
Do you want to know what we were watching?
Oh, what flavored Doritos? I want to know first.
No, I had the red one.
Nacho cheese, okay.
Nacho cheese. We watched the Ice Cube War of the Worlds last night in its entirety.
In its entirety. I tried to watch it and watched it for about 7 minutes, and then the effect wore off.
It's not a movie you can watch alone.
No, I texted Parth. I was like, oh my God, I'm watching War of the Worlds. This is so bad. It's kind of funny. And then 7 minutes later, I texted you again. I was like, no, it's actually so bad. It's bad.
Yeah.
And I turned it off.
Yeah.
But what were your findings? Was it as good as maybe the original Orson Welles radio broadcast, or as good as the Steven Spielberg 2005 adaptation with one of your favorite actors, Tom Cruise? Where did this fall in?
I know you've heard some things. I wouldn't listen to it. Because, can I just say, it's even better.
Even better in the way where it's even worse? Or you're
No,
just
I think
joking?
it's better than the Spielberg, Tom Cruise War of the Worlds, better than the Orson Welles War of the Worlds. No, this bit has gone on far too long. It's really funny. No, it's terrible. It's a horrible movie. The effects are awful. Ice Cube is clearly just doing it for a paycheck. It is funny that Devin Bostick?
Yeah. Roderick.
Of Roderick fame, starred in Oppenheimer 2 years ago.
Well,
and
starred as a he was in it.
It starred. Okay, he was
doesn't
not
starred imply you're a big part of it?
No, if you are a main star, that implies you're a big star of it, but he did star in it. That star just means that you're in it.
He probably had 4 lines of dialogue, but I'll let you
If
have
that.
this.
And he vomited and had snot coming out of his nose. Remember that?
Uh-huh. And now he's followed up Oppenheimer Best Picture winner.
Yes, with this. And it's basically, I had heard, it's just an ad for Amazon. And for most of the movie, I was like, I don't really see what, you're talking about. Devin Bostick plays an Amazon delivery driver. But other than that, it wasn't present. And then the third act happened, in which an Amazon delivery drone plays a pivotal part in the situation resolving itself.
It's almost like we're trying to humanize not only the drones, but the Amazon workers in the reflective vests.
It's true.
It's like they're equals. The robots and the people is what I'm taking from this. But if we, the humans, rise up, it seems like even the aliens can't take us down. If Ice Cube's on our side.
Ice Cube is on our side.
If Ice Cube on a Zoom call, he can do anything. Is it? I would imagine it's in the Zoom call the whole time.
Well, it's a screen life movie, so it's just his computer screen, and he's an overprotective, overbearing father who spies on everyone all the time, all the people in his life.
Yeah, I watched him spy on both of his children, and then I was like, I know that this is exposition. I'm sure these details will come up later about his children's struggles, but I don't. I want aliens.
It is one of the most
aliens.
terribly written movies I think I've ever seen. That stars real people. Because I've definitely seen worse movies that, are some guy made a movie, like a Neil Breen film, or, something like The Room.
I think I'd rather watch, I've seen The Room multiple times and had some laughs, but it was with other people. I think The Room is more watchable than this.
I agree. I think that War of the Worlds Ice Cube version.
Also, it being a screen film is
No, that sucks. But also, it's not bad enough moment to moment to be a great bad film, if you know what I mean.
It has the resources to be good.
Yeah.
And yet,
speaking of resources and good, have you used any good resources around you to like eat something tasty? Like, what have you been eating most recently?
I haven't eaten anything yet today.
No, Trent.
I know. But last night, I had a piece of Tres Leches cake.
I love Tres Leches cake.
I do too. I had a Tres Leches cake for my graduation cake, and we got it from like this Mexican bakery in our town, and we're like, this is going to be so good. It's from Juanito's.
Oh no,
And
I don't like
then-
how this is starting.
And then, graduation is a harrowing day in its own way, and we got back to the house and ate the cake, and even though there's supposed to be 3 milks in there, that shit was dry as a bone.
No.
But what got me hooked on Tres Leches cake was like fucking ShopRite Tres Leches cake, like just from the bakery section. And there I was on graduation day, wishing we just got the grocery store cake.
See, I had first had Tres Leches cake from a Cuban restaurant, but then which was excellent.
I would imagine.
And then the restaurant changed ownership, and the Tres Leches cake was significantly less good.
There was only 1 leche in there from that point on.
That's what it felt like.
I wanted to be sopping wet.
Well, that's the thing.
Wet.
When it became less good because it became more dry, which is just always the problem.
In Parth's life.
Yes. Okay. Well, you know what's not a problem is our intro. See how I did that, Trent? Cue the intro.
Welcome back to Craft Services, where we talk about the movies. Each week we talk about a film and hopefully have a crew member of that film, where we talk about their experience working on the picture. I'm realizing that this week is like the first time ever we've basically haven't done that.
Well, not the first time ever, but close to.
An exception to the rule. Wait, Parth, who do we have this week?
Trent, it's interesting that you're asking me this because this is an interview that Trent willed into existence because of his fandom for this specific guest. Trent, do you want to tell us?
Over the course of a few emails and many months, but this week we had the pleasure of having Sean Fennessey. He called himself a film influencer, if you can even believe it, but he's also the host of the Big Picture podcast and frequent guest on the Rewatchables, head of content at the Ringer Podcast Network, which is my favorite podcast network that hosts a lot of my favorite movie and sports shows.
Trent's a big sports guy.
It's funny, I just refuse to sit in silence, and so they have basketball podcasts, and I listen to hours of them a day just
Wow.
to fill the time. So I know really what's what in the NBA right now, for better or for worse. But I emailed him and said, dude, you're like my favorite podcaster. Can we interview you? And he was nice enough to say yeah. And we just did, and it was really cool. Parth usually gets most of the guests, but this is my second one ever, guys. So
Yeah.
if anyone ever...
Hey, 245 episodes, you finally got 2.
So if anyone ever accuses me of not holding up my half of the weight, this is what I have to show for it.
Yes. And Trent, I hate to say it because you know I love to shit on you, but you done good, kid. Because I think this interview...
that feels so good.
I bet it does. Bet it feels as good as eating a good Tres Leches cake. This is almost like a Cuatro Leches cake, this interview. It's so good.
It's like the 3 milks, and then Sean Fennessey, and then Parth just complimented me. It's Cuatro Leches cake.
Whoa.
Or no, Cinco.
Cinco.
Cinco, sorry.
That's okay.
Should we just do it and cue it, my dudes?
Yeah, let's, I mean, if you're a fan of Sean Fennessey's work, or if you're unfamiliar, I still think he's a really engaging guy. I mean, he hosts a podcast and he gets on other podcasts. He's a cool guy.
His like whole job is to like think and talk about
and be
movies,
interesting,
and which is what Parth and I try to do on a
emphasis on try.
On a more medium level. But we just had a whole list of questions, some about his life, some about just like the state of movies, and I was like, he has an interesting answer for everything. He's kind of...
He sure does. And yeah, this is going to be split into 2 parts, so this is just part 1. We're still going to have a part 2 out for you next week, but before we can get to that, which I'm going to get to in the outro, in between the intro and the outro is the interview, which I'm queuing right now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our discussion with Sean Fennessey. He's the head of content at The Ringer, frequent guest of The Rewatchables, and host of the Big Picture podcast. Thanks so much for coming on today.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Our first question is there a moment in your young movie-going life where you're like, I want to do this forever? I want my life to be centered around this.
I don't think I knew that this was a thing. So that's an interesting way to think about it. Whatever it is that I'm doing with movies now, which is not criticism, but not pure hosting, but not journalism, but not just active fandom. I don't know that it existed in quite... I guess if you were unkind, you could say I'm an influencer around the world of movies. I don't want to be that, but like when you look at the actual work that I'm doing, that's probably the most coherent way of describing it. That didn't exist when I was 5 years old and saw The Wizard of Oz and had my head blown off, or when I was 10 and went to go see Aladdin, or when I was, 14 and saw Pulp Fiction, like when all these like pretty significant signpost movie watching experiences. I do think that voraciously reading magazines and watching behind the scenes DVD featurettes and getting into criticism and taking Pauline Kael books out of the library was all building towards something, but where I am now, I wouldn't even know how to define it. I mean, seeing movies that made me better understand myself and how I felt about the world is what has been consistently cataclysmic, and I'm trying to kind of always get back to that feeling.
And is there an interview or a moment in your early journalism career where you're like, I'm really fucking doing this, I want to continue doing this?
Yeah, I mean, the first 10 years of my career more or less was focused more on music. And so when I got out of college, I had no connections to the world of media or journalism. My dad's a cop. My mom was a clerk typist in a public school. And I took a job as a anti-money laundering agent at UBS. I took this job because of nepotism. My father's sister-in-law, her sister was like a bigwig at the company and got me this job. And I was ashamed to have the job, and I had no formal training to get the job. And I would literally look at international transactions every day and decide whether or not I thought they were money laundering. This is insane that I was allowed to do this. I was 21 years old.
Did you ever catch anyone?
I don't even really know. I mean, you would just sort of make a report and cite that you thought that something was fishy in this, bulk of cash that was being shipped off to a Caribbean island. And that was it. And you never got any feedback on like, good job. But I only did the job for like 37 days. And after 37 days, I got a phone call from Complex Magazine, which was one of the 50 magazines that I applied to. And Complex was like, come on in. We have a job that we are interviewing for. It's an entry-level position, but it does have a staff writer title, which is like a fairly lofty title for somebody with no experience. And I went in there and I did the interview, and I think I did really well in the interview. I always kind of presented well. It's not surprising maybe that I'm in like a presentational job professionally at this point, but I presented well. I had a lot of ideas for how I could do the job. Complex at that time was this kind of intersection of sneaker culture, hip hop, Hollywood, and a burgeoning lifestyle connected to all three of those things.
A lot of things you care about.
All stuff I was really into. So I got that job, and I got that job in part because I was willing to take it for $20,500 a year, which was like
A livable wage.
very brutal living in New York City at that time. But I took it and lived hand to mouth for a while doing it. And within 2 months of having that job, I was asked to interview Kanye West for a cover story. And this was, in that very special period, not just when Kanye was not like seemingly a horrible person. But
What year was it?
It was 2004.
Okay, so after the first album?
So it was post dropout leading up to late registration. And I talked to him on the phone for like 3 hours while he was like preparing a live show. And that was the interview that we did for the cover story. It was a great conversation. It was the first of like maybe 4 or 5 times that I spoke to him over the years for stories. And he was a very important kind of part of my professional career. And I really saw his work as like a prism through which to understand where I thought hip hop was going, all this other stuff. But those conversations and getting to know him a little bit in that time in my life when I was so impressionable and so eager was really powerful. And I look back on those experiences, and I probably haven't spoken with him since 2008, but it's so weird what has happened with him. And so, it's upsetting, obviously, and frustrating. And it has obviously put like kind of a dark cloud over a lot of our love for his music and what we thought he represented. But for me personally, I don't know if I would be where I am without covering his music. I reviewed Late Registration for Pitchfork. It's probably the biggest shine I had gotten to that point, and did a couple more cover stories on him. And I've ran into him a couple times, like in social occasions, and he knew who I was. I was like, this is wild. And so that's not a movie thing, but it's just a personal thing and I was always very comfortable talking not just with him, but with artists. I really like talking to artists, and especially artists who are kind of like maestro types, people who kind of like control everything. I'm really interested in that. And so it's also maybe not super surprising that I primarily speak to filmmakers on the show that I do now.
He has a line, send a prostitute to Pitchfork. Somebody there needed to get laid. That could be you.
I gave Late Registration a 9.5 out of 10, so I highly doubt he was referring to me.
Just in jest.
But why the 9.5 and not the 10?
Well, I didn't control that. Little known fact about Pitchfork, at least when I was writing for the site, is that you could recommend a grade, you could recommend a numerical score, but the editors were the ones who decided what the final score was.
Can you just take us from the music journalism aspect and then bring us to the present day, what you're doing with the big picture and sort of taking us into the movie aspect of it all?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, my intention was to become a magazine journalist and primarily a magazine editor. I thought editor-in-chief was a very exciting and maybe, I don't know about attainable role, but more attainable than being in the world of Hollywood and movies. That was something that like seemed a million miles away when I was a teenager. As I said, I didn't really know anybody who was proximate to the business. I didn't really even feel like I had anything kind of creatively to contribute, but I felt like I could write and I felt like I knew how to talk to people. And so like I studied journalism in college, got these jobs in magazines. It was, roughly 2006 through 2010 was a very gnarly time in the magazine world. It was sort of like, it was really like the fall, like the last era of this overabundance of magazines and magazine journalism. And so got laid off. I was working at Vibe for a few years and I got laid off from there. And I pivoted and moved to a MP3 company called eMusic. And I worked there for like a year as the head of merchandising, which basically meant like I was an editorial, like playlist maker and somebody who wrote blurbs about records and organized stuff together. And I somehow got out of that situation and got a job at GQ. When I worked at GQ, I ran the website at GQ.com. I'd always been straddling the line between digital and print. And this was kind of like going full bore into digital at a place that was primarily known for print, and tried to do some cool stuff there and worked with a lot of great people and learned a lot about how really high-end quality journalism works, and magazine journalism especially, but was like not really happy with their inability to translate any of that to the web. And I got a call in the winter of 2011 when I was working at GQ from Bill Simmons, who had just started Grantland at that time under ESPN, and the site was maybe like 6 or 7 months old. And they basically were just like, he was basically just like, I need a grown-up who can help run the site on a day-to-day basis. Somebody who could be like a managing editor, who can work closely with a lot of writers, who's very productive, very committed, and really gets the tone and intention of what we're trying to do with the site. And he didn't know, but I was a massive, massive fan of his writing and what he had done. And I was also a massive fan of what Grantland was. And already after 6 months, I was like, this is a site for me. It is the collision of sports and popular culture. It is using a simultaneously analytical and obsessive and emotional valence to understand these spaces. And it was a site that had great taste, that hired some of my favorite writers. So I took that job. I moved to California with my wife, and I've been here ever since. And I've been working for Bill ever since. But in 2015, he left ESPN, and I followed him to help launch The Ringer, which is the company that we work for now. And The Ringer is in something of the mold of Grantland, but a little bit different. And then now at this stage, we are like a much more audio and video forward company. Podcasting is the thing we're probably best known for. And I started out as the editor-in-chief of the website at The Ringer. And over time, after a couple of years, Bill encouraged me to start hosting a podcast. And the podcast he wanted me to host was about movies, because I just would never shut up about movies. And had done plenty of writing about movies over the years and talked to filmmakers. And I wrote about movies at Grantland and wrote about movies quite a bit, but had no intention really of becoming a podcast host and didn't really have a ton of experience in broadcasting. And he said, just do it. And so I started interviewing filmmakers, and then that eventually became a chat show. And then the Rewatchable started, and I started appearing on that show. And then, Parth, here we are today. Me on your podcast, telling you my whole spiel.
Can you tell us, just like in a day, like what does a day of you working at the Ringer look like?
Well, I have a weird job. I mean, it's simultaneously a very big but very amorphous job. So my title is head of content. So in theory, everything that we make filters up to me from like a taste and management perspective. That's obviously not something that any one person can do. And there are dozens and dozens of really good managers at the company who oversee a lot of the shows that we make, our video initiatives, our website, and all the journalism that's published there. You know, we have a films division that works on documentaries. So I'm kind of over all of those things, working closely with other people. On a day like today, before I spoke to you guys, I just got off a call with Bill and Jeff Chow at our company. It was like a strategy call. Prior to that, I had a call with a publicist about a film that is screening at a festival that I got an early look at because they wanted some feedback from me. Prior to that, I had a call with a podcast host and gave that host feedback on their most recent episodes, and we talked strategy for what they're doing in the future. Prior to that, I had a call about a forthcoming show that we're launching in the fall covering football. And after I get off with you guys, I'll spend 2 hours prepping for an episode that I'll be doing about the new Zach Kreger movie Weapons, and an interview that I'll be having with Zach tomorrow at 9 a.m. So
How exciting.
It is. And that's kind of what my life is like. It is a constant stream of kind of like balancing the management job with making sure that the show works and spending a lot of time at night going to screenings. Actually, tonight I will be at Vidiot's, which is my like local rep theater, just less than 5 minutes from my house, because my friend Alex Ross Perry, the filmmaker, has a new film called Video Heaven. They're screening Video Heaven at Vidiot's, and then after the screening, I am moderating a conversation with him for the crowd. And that's very typical of the kind of thing that I'm doing these days as well.
Is Alex Ross Perry the dude who did Pavements?
He is. The very
I
same.
like that. And I just saw Weapons yesterday, and I was happy to see your Letterboxd review that you also liked it.
It's fucking great.
Agreed. How do you curate what you want to cover on the big picture, and what's the balance you hope to strike?
It's a very good question. It's 50% feel, 50% kind of informed strategy. I think the purpose of the show is to cover contemporary film culture. So not just to cover contemporary films, but kind of what's happening in the world of movies. So that includes analysis of movies. It also includes analysis of box office, trends, festival culture, the Oscar race, all of the things that kind of comprise the world of movies in 2025. On a week like this is a no-brainer to be covering Weapons. This is for the show's purposes and for my personal taste. Like, there's nothing I like more than an original horror thriller from an exciting writer-director. That is my absolute favorite thing in movies. And so it's easy for me to have sketched out 3 months ago that we would cover this movie on this week, and I would build an episode around it. Other times, if it's a slower time in the calendar, Amanda and I will come up with a creative idea. We have a lot of different kinds of formats that we try to apply to make interesting conversation that looks forward and looks back. Do a lot of drafts, build halls of fame for significant figures. When the Oscar race comes around, we tend to like gamify the awards race as much as possible. The one thing I'll say is that, like, even though we have to cover a lot of things that we don't necessarily have a passion for example, like, I knew we had to cover a Minecraft movie. I'd never played Minecraft and I don't know anything about it. And I know that movie was basically pitched to 10-year-olds, but I had a strong feeling it was going to work, so to speak, for audiences. And so to me, it was like, I have to go see this movie and I have to find something compelling to say about it and what it means for movies. When we talked about it on the show, I didn't spend an hour breaking down scene by scene the choices that Jared Hess made to tell a coherent video game adaptation. It was more like, what is the culture of this movie, which was about like the pandemonium in movie screenings and the way that young people were so excited to see that movie and how they were reacting to it, both emotionally and physically. So that's maybe a little bit more of like a slightly data informed, slightly culturally informed version of the show that isn't purely, well, there's a new Paul Thomas Anderson movie out, and that's the thing that matters the most to me, and I know it. I'm going to cover it for a month.
And when you have an exciting interview tomorrow with Zach Kreger, now we just have an example, is how you're coming up with your questions any more analytical than watching the movie and asking like whatever the hell comes to mind? Because that's sort of what we do. And it's like such a privilege.
I wouldn't say it's more complicated. I do try to be extremely intentional in every interview. I just talked yesterday to Alex Russell, who is the writer-director of this movie Lurker that's coming out this month. And that was a Sundance film. And I was telling him after we talked that my kind of goal in terms of booking with filmmakers these days is either I'll try to get just the most well-known, established, strongest voices that I can to have kind of deep conversation with and try to build a relationship with and have them come back over and over again. Like Wes Anderson was on for the first time this year. Amanda and I are like huge fans of Wes's, very formative for us as young people growing up in the 90s, and his continued success is very interesting. So it was really exciting to be able to get Wes on the show. But then the other thing that I consistently try to do is try to talk to at least 10 first-time filmmakers on the show every year and find new voices that I'm interested in and try to get kind of like build a relationship, not with them personally, but with their work so that we can kind of chart their progress on the show over time. So Zach is a really interesting example of that because I was invited to an early screening of Barbarian in 2022 by somebody who was a listener of the show who had worked on the movie. And they were like, you're just going to like this movie. I listen to your show. I just know you're going to like this. If you don't, that's totally okay. But I want you to come to the screening and just tell me if you think this works, because I think it does. And I went. I loved it. And even though I was kind of primed for the pump, I still really, really responded to it. And then I had Zach on the show, and he was great. And he was like, I listened to the Rewatchables. I know you guys. This is super cool. He was really geeked to be on the show and was really kind about it. And then I was like, this is now like a guy for us. This is somebody whose career I will like chart and follow closely. And so when Weapons was announced and there was a bidding war for that movie, I was like, this is great. So now heading into that conversation, like we'll have like a place to go from the last conversation that we had, where he'll know what we talked about last time. I'll know what we talked about last time. We'll be able to kind of build on that over time. And there are some people that I've been able to do that with many times. The launch of the show coincided with, Hereditary. Like Ari Aster's been on for every film. Jordan Peele has been on all 3 of his films. Robert Eggers has been on for all 4 of his films. Like there's a generation of filmmakers, Chazelle is like this. We just had Coogler on for the first time this year, that we're really interested in and making sure that movie culture has as many like kind of contemporary heroes as it does like old lions, like your Scorsese's, that everybody is covering whenever something comes around, and that we're participating in something that feels very present. And in those conversations, I'm just trying to have like, I'm just genuinely curious. I'm not an artist and I'm not a filmmaker. Like I don't really have a strong, I know what directors do, but I don't really know about lenses, and I wouldn't know how to hold a light. And I don't really come at it from that perspective. So most of my questions are more thematic or about intention or about how someone's career is like operating and how they feel about it, because that's kind of what interests me personally. And that's what I think hopefully the audience is interested in that too.
In your discussions about movies, you're pretty honest about your feelings, if you'll like it, don't like it, etc. But you're saying, you like to have these relationships, whether that's like a professional relationship or whatever, with these artists. Do you ever feel like a tension in how, you don't want to piss the wrong person off, or you don't, whatever? Or is it like, that's not frankly my problem? Like, what's your sort of approach to that?
I have not become friends with very many of these filmmakers. There are some exceptions, but I am not pursuing that. I don't ask these guys for their phone number. Like I'm not trying to, if they are like, let's get together, I would consider that obviously, but I'm trying to keep, it's not a journalistic distance. It's really just more sort of like an emotional boundary in the event that something goes awry and I don't care for it. But that's hard. And one of the reasons why I don't think of what I do on the show as like a pure act of criticism is that indicates some sort of ivory tower unbias, that you have this ability to maintain a certain kind of objective integrity that I think is already like an illusion in the first place, but even more so when you've kind of gotten to know people and are more inherently sympathetic to their intent when they're making something. And I do care about filmmakers' intent And I ask about that a lot, and I kind of want to know what they're going for. And when I get a better sense of what they're going for, it just makes me more sympathetic to their point of view. I don't really think there's anything wrong with that. I do think that people sometimes want something that they feel is bad to be roasted. And so what you get in terms of feedback from listeners is when you don't kill something that they hated, they're mad. They're like, where is my pound of flesh on this? And my honest response is always just like, I'm not really trying to protect anyone. I think I'm just seeing the experience of the movie through a slightly different prism. And I don't know if that makes me like a sellout or whatever. Like I think I can handle that. It's not really a problem for me. But the other thing about the show is that we don't spend a lot of time historically on things that we don't like. There may be some, like, we had to talk about the Jurassic World movie, right? Because that was the big summer blockbuster release. I thought it was like dog shit. I really didn't like it. I thought it was deeply cynical and bad and like poorly written. Performances were not good. I didn't understand it. My co-host didn't agree. Like, they liked it. They thought it was a fun time at the movies. And we talked about that in a productive way. I would never ask the filmmaker to be on for a movie that I really didn't like. And even like, I didn't ask Gareth Edwards to be on for The Creator either, even though I liked that movie more, but thought it had a lot of problems. So I try to ask filmmakers onto the show whose work I'm interested in, who I care about, and who I can find like an empathetic connection to. But it's not like overwhelmingly strategic. You know, there are some things that are strategic where it's like, if Quentin Tarantino has a movie coming out, I would love for him to come on the show. And if I don't like his next movie, I'll have to find a way to talk about that in a way that feels fair. But I like every Quentin Tarantino movie. So what are the odds that I'm not going to like the new movie? I mean, they're low. It doesn't mean it won't happen, but they're pretty low. Before I had even encountered him in the world, I was like, God, every single one of these movies just taps into a very specific strain of my marrow. You know, like, I'm really on the level with what this guy's going for. So I'm using that same feeling I had when I was 14, 24, 34 to kind of guide where I want the show to go in terms of how we cover movies and the people that make them.
Just talking about people like QT, can you just talk about some of your favorite interviews that you would just be like so beside yourself to tell your 14-year-old self that you've conducted?
I mean, they're all crazy. It's all been very exciting. I'm trying to think of who I would have been aware of at 14 besides Quentin that I've spoken to that would really blow my hair back.
Because that narrows the question down.
Yeah. I mean, I got to spend like 2 hours with William Friedkin 5 years ago, which for me was and it was 1 hour of interview and 1 hour we just had lunch. And that was very rewarding. And he was very, very generous to me. And he like kind of lived up to my expectation of him. And I love his movies, and I really, worship 70s Hollywood, and especially 70s Hollywood filmmakers whose attitude is sort of like, fuck you, I'm going to do what I want. I love that pursuit of the art form. And he just made so many good movies. And even his movies that are considered failures are so interesting to me. So I think if I told 17-year-old me that I spent a day with William Friedkin, I think he would be pretty stoked. But there have been a lot of cool examples. I've gotten to meet a lot of people that I really like.
Are you a listener of your own work really at all? Like, I
you?
guess you like are. Well, weirdly, yes and no. Because, I mean, we started this podcast when Trent and I were like 19 and in college. And so every now and then it simultaneously feels good and bad to listen to an old episode to be like, wow, we're more of a real podcast now. And then also, wow, that was really horrible. And I can't believe that we put that out there. Not that you were ever at that, end of the totem pole.
I definitely was. Yeah. As recently as last week, I'm like, how could I have done this on a podcast?
But yeah, I feel like I'm, at least personally, as a person with a podcast, always oscillating between I should maybe listen to it, but then like I really can't listen to the sound of my own voice. So yeah, I don't know where you stand on that.
I don't really listen to the show. I did a lot in the beginning because I was a little insecure about how I was doing it. And if you listen to the early episodes, which were primarily interview episodes, I was very NPR-y. I was very, very afraid to kind of be myself. And it was not for like a lack of confidence. It was like this sense of what I thought a movie show like this should be and what it should be like to talk to a director. And then as soon as Amanda came on the show after like a year or so, it was much more about the relationship between she and I. And that became the kind of prevailing feeling of experiencing the show, and has been a really interesting experience for the two of us because we were obviously colleagues and close friends, and we're even closer friends and closer colleagues now. But the show became much more about us going through early middle age together publicly while watching movies. And that was not a part of the design, but if you listen now, and if I hear myself talking now, I can like hear my dad's voice. You know, I can hear stuff that I couldn't hear when I was pretending to be Terry Gross in 2018 on the show. So I try not to listen for both reasons. Like I don't want to be embarrassed about the early stuff, and I don't want to be existentially mortified by the present day.
Trent,
Hi, Parth. That was great.
I think so too.
We thought this week would be a different thing.
We
but
did.
then I think we jinxed that thing. Did we? I don't know.
Well, we didn't. We didn't jinx that thing, but we had an interview which is still going to happen, but because of technical difficulties, could not happen. So it's just going to be a little bit less culturally relevant by the time it comes out.
But if any eagle ear listener listens to part 2 of the Eddington discussion outro, you're going to hear us talk about an episode
That was not to be.
that doesn't exist yet. But you're lucky because we have this.
Yes, I'm really grateful to Sean Fennessey, who I think was great on the show, gave some cool answers. Trent, was he everything you ever dreamed of? Because I know you dreamed of it.
Yes, I was a bit nervous.
We were both nervous.
And so were you, apparently. But then he joined the call and we just started talking, and we're just 3 guys who like
Three happy
movies.
campers.
And we were 3 happy campers, especially me.
You know who's a happy camper?
I was probably the happiest camper, then who the next 2 spots are still open for debate.
Well done, Trent. What I was going to say is that the happiest camper is probably the listener, because they can feel secure in knowing that an episode's coming out every Sunday on any
At 5 a.m.
on any Sunday, 5 a.m. EST, and any major podcasting platforms, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora, etc. And Trent, they can stay updated, can they not?
Yeah, no, they can. Instagram, Twitter,
Those two.
those 2.
We're working on it, guys. We're working on some other stuff. We're trying to make it work.
News to me. But if you like the show, rate and review, 5 stars.
5 stars. 4 stars, we'll do. We'll do it. It's fine.
I'll take it. At this point, I'll take it. Tell a friend about the show.
Please. It really does help.
Yeah, I gotta go. See you next week.
Yeah, Trent's got a flight to catch, so we'll see him in Michigan, guys. Bye, everyone.
As they say, see you in Michigan.
As they say.
Everyone's saying that, man.
Yeah.